Do want to get you right back into your headlines here at this hour as we take a live look over the Capitol building in D.C. You can see right there on your screen. And with the partial government shutdown now in day 2, it appears likely that it will last until at least Tuesday. A senior House Republican telling Fox's Chad Pergram the House will not vote on the Senate-passed bill until Tuesday, and its passage is contingent on the House aligning with the Senate. House Speaker Mike Johnson appeared on Fox News Sunday earlier on today.
We'll have a lot of conversations to have with individual Republican members over the next 24 hours or so. We'll get all this done by Tuesday, I'm convinced. We do have to do it by way of a rule process, which will be probably on our own. I don't understand why anybody would have a problem with this, though. Remember, the bills that have already been passed, we're going to do it again. It's a formality at this point. The Homeland Security bill is important, and we have important negotiations. The president is leading this. It's his play call to do it this way. He has already conceded that he wants to turn down the volume, so to speak, and make sure this is done in an appropriate way. What a great step it was to put Tom Homan in charge of the situation in Minneapolis and Minnesota. He has 40 years experience. He's brought a steady hand to the wheel, and all that is to be applauded. And he himself has already acknowledged to Leader Schumer in the Senate, and I'm sure he'll say the same to House Democrats, that some of the reforms and the processes are fine with them. For example, we want body cameras on Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. In fact, in the bill that the Democrats are currently rejecting, we put $20 million into that legislation to allow for that. So, look, I think there's some healthy conversations in good faith that'll be had over the next couple of days, and I look forward to that.
And that was Mike Johnson there as he spoke on Fox News Sunday. Now, that shutdown clock on the bottom right-hand side of your screen does continue to run here. You can see it's at 1 day, 14 hours, 3 minutes, and 15 seconds. Now, Fox's Chad Pergram saying the House Rules Committee was set to meet today, but that has now been moved to tomorrow, and House Republicans believe they do have the votes to pass the bill. President Trump and Democrats carving out Homeland Security funding, allowing Congress to debate new restrictions on federal immigration reform. Now, under the compromise, Homeland Security funding will continue at current levels for about 2 weeks. That'll give Republicans time to consider Democrat demands to unmask agents, require additional warrants, and allow local authorities to help investigate any incidents. The funding bill passed the Senate late Friday by a vote of 71 to 29, and the government will remain partially shut down until the House can pass the bill. So what does all this mean? I do want to bring in an expert to help break all of this down for us. Ed Jenkins is a professor of practice and accounting at Penn State, joining us now live. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
Thanks, Josh. It's great to be with you.
And first off, the big question I want to ask is kind of an overarching question here as we go in reverse. Can you explain exactly what a federal government shutdown is, but also how a partial shutdown kind of differs from it?
I sure can. So a shutdown, of course, occurs whenever the government no longer has congressional authority to continue spending money or operating. So that, of course, happens when Congress is unable to gain consensus on tax or revenue bills and spending appropriations bills. So that's going to bring us to a full shutdown if we don't pass any of the appropriations bills. We have passed 6 of them so far, and we have 6 on the table now. And as you mentioned, and Speaker Johnson mentioned, we have a deal on the table to pass the 5 additional appropriations bills, plus the Homeland Security extension for 2 weeks. So that'll give us a partial shutdown for a couple of days. In terms of how significant that is, again, it's only a few days, so hopefully there isn't a significant gross domestic product impact and a limited impact on people's lives.
That's what I was going to ask you next. Are people out there, the average American, are they going to feel any sort of impacts this weekend or in the coming days if the shutdown does continue?
Well, as the speaker mentioned, they're planning on passing the 5 bills plus the extension for Homeland Security on Tuesday. So not a lot is going to happen. And many of those departments have accepted employees who are not going to be furloughed, as well as employees who have to come to work anyway, even though they're not getting paid. So I don't anticipate a substantial impact on folks' lives from the day or two or maybe three that we suffer a partial shutdown here. And remember, 5 or 6 of the appropriations bills are already enacted. So it's only for those 6 that have yet to be enacted.
A lot of this, obviously, about the Department of Homeland Security and the situation that's playing out there over in Minneapolis. Wanted to ask what happens and get your take here if there isn't an agreement reached between the Democrats and Republicans on the DHS funding in 2 weeks.
Well, that'll be interesting. Hopefully the other 5 bills will pass and we'll have all those in place. If Homeland Security, however, doesn't come or is not enacted, there are a number of departments that will suffer a shutdown. Now, remember, many of the Homeland Security employees are accepted employees, so they'll still continue to work and continue to be paid. A number of them have to work and unfortunately not get paid, and then some will be furloughed. But you have to think about, well, what are the departments within Homeland Security that are going to be affected? And those departments include ones like Custom and Border Protection. They include Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, which we were just talking about on the show. The TSA, and that's one that has a significant impact on folks right away because, hey, it could clog the airports if things don't run smoothly. And we experienced that in the fall, where while those workers still continue to have to work, getting them to work because they may choose to maybe be sick that day can be a bit of a challenge. Secret Service is in here as well, as is the Coast Guard. So our maritime safety is at risk here, but again, many of these employees are going to be accepted. We also have in this piece of the budget FEMA. And so FEMA could be a significant issue, particularly as here on the East Coast, we're experiencing some volatile weather, at least in the Southeast. But if there are any natural disasters, FEMA could be impacted. However, they have some reserves kind of held back that they could continue to operate. You've got, immigration. And so those services for citizenship may be impacted. The one that gives me a little bit of insecurity are cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency. They're the ones that keep us, safe from cyber threats, which are pretty much constant at this point. The Inspector General will likely be furloughed in their office. And then there are a couple of other things like Federal Protective Service for the federal buildings. And another one that scares me a little bit is Intelligence Analysis and Situational Awareness, who's responsible for supporting intelligence integration and information sharing. So there are a couple of pieces of the Homeland Security funding that are a little bit scary that we'd really like to have resolved fairly quickly.
I wanted to ask because we've seen government shutdowns happening. I feel as though I'm reporting on it constantly every few months here. Are these government shutdowns becoming more and more common? Are we just hearing about them more? What is the situation there?
Well, we've gotten a little more polarized over the last few years. I just was looking at a book about a fellow who was analyzing the economic impact since the tax freedom movement of a couple decades ago, leading up to today's polarization. So the polarization we see today is making it very difficult to get bills through Congress. Sometimes they're arguing about things that aren't actually at issue in the legislation. And so we are experiencing more frequent. But to be honest with you, boy, I'm not sure we've really passed a budget. I think there was one time in the last couple of decades that we've actually passed a budget on time. So we had significant shutdowns in 95, 96, 2013, 2018 to 19. And that was an especially harsh one because we went from that shutdown, which was the longest in recorded time at the time. And then shortly after that, in the spring of 20, we got hit with a pandemic. And so certain government agencies really got hammered between the shutdown and then the subsequent pandemic. And we had these horrific stories of the IRS with 6 million or 7 million returns in backlog and not getting processed. Now, we kind of have a multiple hit here to the IRS in that they're 25% of the size that they were a year ago. And so in addition to having the shutdown, the reductions in force, if we have another shutdown that would affect the IRS, we're going to see significant slowdowns in the work that they do. Now, of course, in October of 25, we had the longest shutdown in recorded time. And a lot of that is the result of the polarization that we are experiencing currently. So hopefully we can start to work together here soon.
And as far as the situation here, as it progresses and we kind of watch everything very closely, again, we have that countdown clock on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, 1 day, 14 hours, 12 minutes, and about 3 seconds. Wanted to ask you here what we need to be watching for over the coming hours and days as this does continue.
Well, I'm hoping that Speaker Johnson's forecast of everything getting resolved by Tuesday is a reality. And in that case, I don't expect a lot of individual households to be significantly impacted by a 1 or 2, some of which is during the weekend, day shutdown. Of course, those workers who can't work, they may miss a day or so of work, but we typically do reimburse them and make up that compensation that they may have missed. So I'm not anticipating from this current couple of day partial shutdown a significant impact on most households.
All right. Ed Jenkins, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. There's a lot to this, so we appreciate you breaking it down. Anything we missed, anything you want to make sure to add before I let you go?
Yeah, we haven't talked about the debt and the deficits leading to the debt that is at historic levels. And when you throw in the Social Security shortfall plus the debt, you're looking at $350,000, $360,000 per man, woman, and child in the U.S. that we've got to figure out and get some, big kids in Congress to make some tough decisions about how we're going to tackle the debt and Social Security shortfall.
All right. Ed Jenkins, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and helping to break it down. We definitely appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh. You have a great day.
You too. And we're looking at a post here from Speaker Mike Johnson. He took to social media and said Republicans funded border security and immigration enforcement in the Working Families tax cut to clean up the chaos Democrats created after allowing 20 million illegal aliens into our country on purpose. The Democrats are fully aware that if they block bipartisan DHS funding, it will not stop enforcement, but it would lead Americans leaving them without FEMA's help after disasters and slow TSA security lines at airports across America. This week, Democrats need to do the responsible thing and vote to keep DHS funded and operating for the American people. Again, that is a post there on your screen coming in from Speaker Mike Johnson.